Hello everyone, welcome to channel Qtomation. So in previous sessions we have seen about all the different phases. For example, requirement analysis, test design, test environment setup, test execution, defect tracking, defect logging, etc. Today we will see about the final phase of test activities, that is test closure activities and test metrics report. So what exactly test closure activities are? Test closure refers to the final phase of the software testing lifecycle, where various activities are performed to formally conclude the testing process. Test closure activities ensures that all the testing objectives have been met and the product is ready for release or deployment on production. And what are the different activities we perform for test closure? So test closure means we are going to stop the test execution. And there are some parameters on which the testing is stopped. So what is test completion reporting? So inside the test closure activities, we have to compile and document the results of the testing effort. We have to summarize all the testing activities we have performed, including test cases which we have executed, defects which are found, defects which are fixed, and if there are any unresolved issues. So that we have to include under test completion reporting. So this is also one of the test closure activity. Defect report preparation. So we have to document all the defects which are found during testing and including their status. For example, some defects might be fixed and closed. Some defects can be deferred. For example, there can be some open issues which are not important for the release. So product manager might suggest that we are going to fix those issues in later releases. So in such situation, those defects are basically deferred. And there can be some minor issues which are still open but not concerning for the overall release. So we have to prepare such reports for such information. We have to provide a detailed report on the quality of the product based on the number of severity of the defects. So overall number and what is the severity of those defects. So we have to create one defect report as well. Test artifacts handover. So in test closure activity, we have to archive all the test artifacts such as test plan, test cases, test scripts, defect logs, test report, and any other relevant documents. We have to ensure that all these documents are accessible for future reference. So we can store all the test cases in any repository. It can be a Google Drive or it can be a specific test management tool. In that tool, we have to store all the test documents. For example, we can store all the test cases, all the test plan document, all the test report, test scripts, defect report, etc. So that in future, whenever we have to refer to those documents, we can just quickly find out via those repositories. So that's why we should always take care of all these documents and we should store them in proper place. In every release, we learn something. So few things that goes well in the release, few processes that goes well in the releases, and sometimes we also face some lessons as well. Sometimes few points or few things cannot go as per plan. So what are those things? What are the challenges we have faced during testing? All these things we should discuss in retrospective meeting. So after every release, we should plan some retrospection meeting in which testing team will discuss what went well, what did not went well, and how the process can be improved in future projects. And we have to document those lessons which we have learned and best practices for future reference. So in such a retrospection meeting, we should discuss among all the testers what went well and what could have been better or what went wrong. And we should note down such actions and we should find some solution or some process change around those pointers so that those will be improved for the future release as well. Test environment cleanup. So in test closure activities, after testing is completed, we should perform some test cleanup activity. So test environment cleanup activity. So we can decommission the test environment, including database, servers, and other resources that were set up for testing. We have to ensure that any sensitive data which is used during testing is securely removed. Sign off and stakeholder communication. We should obtain formal sign off from the stakeholders indicating that the testing phase is officially complete. We can communicate all the test closure status to all relevant stakeholders. We can provide different type of report to all the stakeholders so that they can also go through and provide the final confirmation and sign off from their end as well. So this is also one of the part of test closure activity. And at the end, the important part is test metrics. So what is exactly test metrics? So in test metrics, after the testing is completed, we have to gather some information. And with the help of that gathered information, there are some specific information which we can calculate. So it is some kind of a matrix data. Matrix means measurement. So we have to do some analysis on overall release of testing. So overall testing which has happened for the release, overall testing activities which have happened, we have to gather different type of data, and with the help of that data we have to create some test metrics to assess the effectiveness and efficiency of the testing process. So there should be some measurement. So without some data, how can you do some measurement of the activities? So metrics is basically helpful for that. So metrics means we have to measure, we have to analyze the data, and we have to calculate some information that I will just show you in some time. But just understand, so we have to prepare some test metrics, and that metrics is used to assess the effectiveness and efficiency of the testing process. That matrix might include test coverage, defect density, defect leakage, test execution rate, etc. So these are some information parameters. So these are some metrics parameter which are used to assess the effectiveness and efficiency of the testing process. How we are going to calculate these parameters, that I will just show you in some time. So to calculate these things, the first and important thing is we should have some proper data. And what is that data? What is the prerequisite for creating such test metrics? So this is the type of data which we should gather for test metrics creation. Total number of requirements. So the project on which you have already worked for the testing, what are the number of total requirements included in that project? So what were the total number of requirements? For those total number of requirements, how many test cases we have written? So as a QA team, how many test cases are written for those requirements? So that would be a one number. It can be 100, it can be a 200, it can be a 500, depending on complexity of that feature. We have to determine total number of test cases which we have written. Out of those written test cases, how many test cases are executed? So that is another parameter, total number of test cases that were executed. Out of those test cases, how many number of test cases got passed, how many number of test cases got failed, and how many number of test cases got blocked. Blocked means whenever in first round of testing you found some of the issues, which can be a P1 issue or P0 issue. and because of those issues some test cases got blocked, means you could not execute those test cases because of the failed issues. So such test cases are blocked test cases. Total number of non-executed test cases. Sometimes in our test environment setup there could be possibility that some test cases we cannot execute due to some limitations. It can be an environment specific limitation, or it can be a dev setup related problem, etc. So there can be some cases which we could not execute during the testing. So that will come under total number of non-executed test cases. Also we have to find out total number of defects found depending on their severity and priority as well. For example, how many critical defects were there, how many major defects were observed, how many minor number of issues were there. So all this information also we need for test matrix creation. We have to also find out total number of defects found in user acceptance testing. So once you complete the overall test execution and you provide the QA sign off, then that build is tested by product person or business person as a part of user acceptance testing. And how many defects were actually found in the UAT, that also we have to note down. Also total number of reopened issues. So how many issues are got fixed in the first round but they again got reopened in next round. So such count also we should note down. So this is the data which we need for test metrics. And with the help of this data, we can create or we can calculate some examples, some parameters. For example, percent of test cases execution. So how many percent of test cases we have executed in the release? What is the formula to calculate that? So total number of test cases which are executed divided by total number of test cases which are written in 200. So this formula will give you total percent of test cases executed. It can be a 80%, it can be a 90%, it can be 95%. So whatever data you are getting, we should note down that data. Total number of test cases, percent of test cases which are not executed. What is the formula for that? Total number of test cases not executed divided by total number of test cases written in 200. So that is the formula to calculate test cases not executed percent. After that we have to also calculate percent of test cases passed. What is the formula for that? Total number of test cases passed divided by total number of test cases executed in 200. So total number of test cases which are passed divided by total number of test cases executed, and we have to multiply that value by 100. So that will give you percent of passed test cases. And similarly we can calculate percent of failed test cases. So total number of test cases failed divided by total number of test cases executed into 100. So this divided by this into 100. So that will give you total percent of test cases failure. And test cases blocked. Total number of test cases blocked divided by total number of test cases executed into 100. So this formula will give you blocked test cases percentage. After that we can also calculate defect density, defect leakage, defect removal efficiency, defect rejection ratio, defect age, and customer satisfaction. So these are the things we have to include in our test matrix data. So what is defect density? So defect density means total number of defects which are found during testing divided by total number of requirements. So this formula will give you defect density. So we have to calculate this number. So you have this data, you have total number of defects found, that would be some count, and total number of requirements which are there. So this formula will give you the value of defect density. Defect leakage. What is the formula to calculate defect leakage? Number of defects found in user acceptance testing. So, how many number of defects got identified during user acceptance testing divided by total defects found in overall testing, and we have to multiply that by 100. So it will give you defect leakage value. So it will overall give you defects. Basically, what is the value of number of defects found in UAT? Defects that were escaped earlier testing phases and they were found during user acceptance testing. That value divided by total defect found in testing. So as a QA team, how many defects you have found in your overall testing into 100. So this divided by this, whatever value you are getting into 100, that will give you defect leakage value. Defect removal efficiency. What is the formula for defect removal efficiency? So number of defects found during software testing, number of defects, those were found and those were fixed during your test execution, divided by number of defects fixed during software testing plus number of defects found during UAT. So this value divided by addition of these two values into 100. So this formula will give you defect removal efficiency. Then we can calculate defect rejection ratio as well. So defect rejection ratio is nothing but number of rejected defects divided by total number of defects which are logged. So as a QA, sometimes you log the defect, but those defects got rejected by the developers due to various reasons. Due to various reasons, defects can be sometimes deferred, it can be marked as duplicate, it can be additional enhancement instead of defect. So lots of rejection reasons are there. So number of rejected defects divided by total number of defects logged, the value which you are getting in 200. So that will give you defect rejection ratio. Defect age. What is defect age? So defect age is nothing but how much time or how many days that defect was open. So for example, date of defect closure. So when exactly that defect got closed minus date of defect detection. So date of defect detection means the date when the defect was first identified and reported, and date of defect closure means the date when the defect was resolved and closed. So the difference between that two value is nothing but defect age. For example, if a defect was detected on January 1st and it was closed on January 10, the defect age is 10 days. Customer satisfaction. So whatever feature we are developed, whatever feature we have tested, whatever feature we are deploying on production, so how many customers are satisfied, how much customer is satisfied with that feature. So that also we can calculate. That is also called as a customer satisfaction or CSAT. What is the formula to calculate CSAT? But before that, how the business is going to calculate the CSAT? So we should know. So basically, after survey, so basically customers are getting some survey messages, survey forms. So we should have two values: number of satisfied customers divided by total number of surveyed customers into 100. And number of satisfied customers mean the number of customers who rated their experience as satisfactory, often measured on a scale of 4 or 5 on a 5-point scale. So in your product, sometimes you can have that scale. We can ask the customers to provide the feedback. They will rate out of 1 to 5. If customer satisfied, they will rate 4 or 5. So we should have that rating. So number of satisfied customers divided by total number of surveyed customer into 100, that value will give you customer satisfaction value. So total number of surveyed customer means the total number of customers who responded to satisfaction survey. So whenever such survey is conducted, how many customers have responded, and out of them, how many have given 4 or 5 points on a scale. That value is number of satisfied customer. If customer is giving the value of 4 and 5, that means they are satisfied. That value divided by total number of surveyed customer into 100. So this formula will give you CSAT value. So this is again one of the test matrix parameter. So we should share this value as a part of test closure activity. So after test closure activities are done, we should share this test matrix. So this is about the test closure activities and test matrix. So they are used together. So for test closure and test matrix activities, so test matrix is nothing but used to gather and analyze the effectiveness and efficiency of the testing processes. So thank you for watching this video. In the coming session, we will see some important points which every QA person should know and should remember and should apply whenever they join any organization as a test engineers or QA person. So what are those points? What are the day-to-day activities? That we will see in coming session. Thank you for watching this video.